We all remember recess growing up in school. Recess was a time of day where you could have all the conversations that you could not have while in class. Recess is where you had the real conversations. And real conversations we're going to have. In each episode of the Recess podcast, I'm going to have real conversations explaining students and school. I'm David McGuire, and I'll be your host. It's recess time, y'all. What's up, beautiful people? Happy Tuesday. David McGuire here, back with the Recess podcast. This is episode 28, titled Teachers in Residency, and I'm excited for this conversation. I have two amazing educators with me this evening. I'm going to dub them the future because they are the future of this profession, and I'm excited to engage in this conversation. As always, if you're a first-time listener to the Recess podcast stands for Real Education Conversations, explaining students in school, and we're going to tackle a real conversation tonight. To my listeners that always rock with me, welcome again. I appreciate you. I need everybody, if you can, to jump in the comments. So if you're an educator and you're listening to the show, hop in the comments and let us know what route you took to the profession. And again, we're going to dive right in. And so without further ado, I'm going to yield the floor to my two guests to introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with my fellow t-shirt up there. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and let the folks know who she is. And so I want to thank both of them for joining. So Dillian, go ahead and introduce the folks who you are on the Recess podcast.
All right, cool. Hey, everybody. My name is Dillian Williams. My pronouns are she, they, and I am currently a fifth grade teacher resident at KIPP Unite Elementary School. I'm originally from New Jersey. I recently moved to Indy not too long ago, so in July of last year, when I began my residency program and teaching at KIPP. So that's a little bit about me. I graduated from Howard University last year in May. So yeah, I think that's me. Yeah.
Well, welcome. Congratulations on graduation, and welcome to the show. Next up, Kelvin, go ahead and introduce the folks who you are. Let them know where you're from, what you represent, and where you teach at.
Hello, everybody. I am Kelvin Owens. I also teach at KIPP Indy Unite, and I'm originally from Chicago, so South Side in the building. What up, y'all? And I moved to Indianapolis I think it's been about 2 years now. It's kind of weird to say, but has been about 2 years. And I've also been working at KIPP for 2 years. So graduated in 2019 from Purdue University Northwest, which is in Hammond, Indiana. And, thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Welcome to both of you. Congratulations again. And like I said, congratulations to both of you for choosing the right profession and do the work of children. And so I'm excited about this conversation. So again, this conversation is about teachers in residency. And so as you heard, both of these teachers are representing KIPP Indy, and they partner with Relay Graduate School of Indianapolis that has launched a new teacher residency program just last school year. And so they are two resident teachers, and this is a new way of looking at education. We've had conversations about, what are we going to do to improve the quality of teachers that come out, to increase the pipeline, to even diversify the pipeline. And one thing that's got a lot of traction over the past decade is this idea of a residency program. And so those that aren't familiar, I'm going to let the two of them kind of talk about it because they're in it and kind of define residency. But from what I've read is it kind of models the same thing that doctors go through. And so you have resident teachers that get connected with the school and get hired on as a school. They get partnered with a master teacher for a year. Along with that, they're taking coursework and get that master's degree. And then they're better positioned to step into the classroom. And this is a model that I definitely am a fan of and believe that it's something that can definitely improve the quality of education. And if you are interested in more, I have a blog that just dropped on NDK12 that talks about resident teacher, but you're going to get the truth and the raw from these two amazing teachers. So we'll start off and easy to define it because you guys are in it. So if one of you or both of you could tackle the question of what does it mean to be a resident teacher? Like define it from a standpoint of going through what's it like to be, what is a resident teacher for those that don't know? Either one of you can tackle that first.
I guess I'll go. So to be a resident teacher is exactly, how you explained it. It's very similar to how doctors, they go in and, they have to do these these I forgot the word that fast, but that's all right. It's basically how like doctors go in, they, have to do these residencies, and they have to learn on the go. And, it's the same thing for Relay. We go in, we, teach on the go, we learn as we go. And then along the way, we have people coaching us to make us, stronger teachers. So at the end, we strive to be the best teachers that we can be. And, just you have to be in the program with an open mind, as well as, the willingness to grow.
I love it. I love it. Dylan, do you want to chime into that? Maybe drop something about your experience and how you would define what it means to be a resident teacher?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you both hit the nail right on the head. Like that doctor analogy, I think is really the best one, like similarly to the medical residency, in the same way that you're not a doctor all at once. With our residency, you're not expected to be a teacher all at once. You are introduced with smaller responsibilities, and as you grow in your first year and develop the practical skills in the classroom, along with the skills that we learn through our coursework and advisors and mentors, like we are gradually able to accumulate the knowledge and skill set that we need that really sets us up to be a good lead teacher ultimately.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to talk more about resident teacher, but I want to get to your whys, right? Because I love being an educator. I've wanted to be it since I was 17. So I'm going to ask the simple question. What made you want to be a teacher? Why being a teacher? I'm sure that you heard a lot of things that people said about teachers don't make no money and teaching's hard and yada, yada, yada. So what was the motivation for you to become teachers?
I can go first with that one. So teaching is definitely something that was not on my radar until I was about a sophomore in college. And even then, it was more so the broader spectrum of education. I started college as a legal communications major. That's what my undergrad degree is in. And I wanted to pursue a career in either criminal or civil law. And as I got into my coursework, I realized that a lot of the social justice inequities and educational and like disparities within our society were all rooted in education. And it just really felt that like in order to really get to the root of the problem, we had to start with education and uprooting the system that we currently know and just figuring out ways to make it better and make it more equitable for our students. So I think that that kind of drove me in the direction of not only education, but being a teacher, because teachers are at the front lines. They are the people who interact with students, and they are really who influence students on a day-to-day basis. So it just felt like a proactive way of contributing to building up marginalized communities who are mostly affected by the educational disparities.
I agree, man. Educators are the gatekeepers to all of the careers. Teachers are those gatekeepers, and so I love it. So, Kelvin, what about you? What was the motivation to say, "Yep, teaching is what I want to do"? And was it the original plan, or was it something that you kind of, you fell into and fell in love with?
Yeah. So, in all honesty, and we're gonna keep it real.
Yeah, let's keep it real. Let's keep it real.
So my background is in communications. I really wanted to get into like videography, video editing, and photography. And once I graduated, the getting into that field was like very hard for me. Not really sure why, but it just was. And I was basically in survival mode. Like I needed a job right out of college. So Relay, they introduced me to teaching, and the only reason that I honestly considered it was because I was in survival mode. I needed to work, pay bills. I also have a son that I need to take care of. So all of those factors played a huge role. And with Relay, they helped me find Kip, and Kip said, you may not, your teaching may not be your first choice, but we do understand that you have a passion for kids as well. And, I just want to make sure that I'm doing right by the students, even though like teaching wasn't my first passion. But the past 2 years that I have been teaching, I fell in love with the students, and they keep me motivated to do right by them, and make sure that they are getting the education that they deserve as well.
Man, shout out to Kip, shout out to Relay for fostering that love. But I tell anybody, you may not think the education is for you until you get in front of those children, and those kids just have a way of just taking your heart and just filling it with so much love that you were like, I don't want to do teaching. And then you get in front of kids and everything changes. So definitely, I'm appreciative of having both of you in the profession, because like I said, I'm not a veteran in the game, but I've been in it for a minute. And I love seeing ambitious and bright and smart and beautiful people get into education. And it makes my heart smile. So definitely welcome you to the profession. And excited about this conversation. So, Kelvin, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want you to go deeper, and we're going to pass it to you as well. Why Relay? There's a lot of programs out there, right? So obviously, neither one of you are traditional teachers, so you didn't go the traditional route, but you had Teach for America. You had the Indianapolis Teaching Fellows. You had Teachers for Tomorrow. You had, I'm going to just teach because people need teachers, so I ain't going to go through no program. I'm just going to walk into school. But why Relay? Like, why the residency route? Why Relay to help you embark on this journey?
So speaking to my recruiter, he really reassured me that I would have help all along the way. And in all honesty, I have received so much help from my deans, from my professors, people from different parts of the country, because we don't always just have classes with the people inside of Indianapolis. We also have online classes with other teachers that are teaching across the country. So having all of those, having all of that support, and just being honest with myself and allowing people to flow within me and guide me to what I really need to become in order to become a teacher, like that. Is really what's driving me right now. So I appreciate them for reaching out to me and, reassuring myself that, you can do this, and, we're not going to hold your hand, but we will guide you in the right steps.
I love it.
Similar to Kelvin, I think that when I first decided that teaching was something that I wanted to pursue, a battle that I had within myself was the lack of traditional training and just having that skill set already equipped within me. And I think that Relays, as I looked through Relay's first year was just something that really caught my eye, because I didn't want to be a lead teacher in a under-resourced and underfunded classroom, knowing that I didn't believe that I had the skill set to provide these students with what I need, with what they needed. And I thought that it was really important that the program that I participated in helped me build and cultivate that, and get me to a place that I feel that I can proficiently teach students in a lead capacity. And I think that's something that Relay's first year really does, and that's what initially caught my eye. So I think that's why I ultimately decided to go with Relay's program.
Yeah, I love it. And we all know Carlotta, who helped put this together, and who's an amazing educator. So she said for Relay, during the first year of residency, our Relay residents work closely with the teacher as a classroom apprentice. Listen, those that are educators that are listening, those that are teachers, and even you all, like, everybody remembers their first year, right? I remember my first year. I went back to my kids the next year, and I apologized how bad I was as a first year teacher, just because it is hard, right? But being able to have the opportunity as a first year teacher, right, new to the profession, as you mentioned, in the underserved, under-resourced area, in a community, in a school where students need a lot more supports and probably need more experienced teachers, to be able to be partnered and work closely alongside a master teacher to guide you through that first year. Not only is it invaluable for the students, but it's invaluable for you. And I just think that's why this residency piece is such a beautiful way, because you have an awesome opportunity to make sure that you bring teachers into profession the right way. I'm gonna be honest, if you are a first year teacher and then contemplate quitting, I'm going to question whether or not you really tried, because it was hard, right? But having somebody support you and being in your ear is how we keep teachers in the profession. So again, I just want to stamp again. I'm going to stamp throughout the show just the importance of the residency piece. And I went through Relay's principal fellowship program, so I know how rigorous Relay is. I know how committed they are to doing right by children. So I know that you guys are getting great support. And I also know the folks at Relay, we missing Carlotta, but also Erica McGady, who worked with me at Tinley. So I know you are surrounded around quality educators who are going to get you right. So let's walk everybody, including myself, into the Relay environment. So what has your experience been like with Relay, both as a student learning to teach, but also as a teacher and the supports that Relay finds? What's that experience been like?
Go ahead.
I think it's a little bit different given how the pandemic has kind of affected our ability to participate in just classroom environments and not being able to be in person. So I think it's going to be a little bit different from Relay's typical model, obviously, but I think so far it's been really great. It's been really insightful, and I think I really appreciate Relay's model of learning, which is learning by doing, learning by continuous and deliberate practice. And I think being able to practice and apply the things that we learn through our courses real time within the classroom, being able to execute and do things and then come back, practice, see where we might have went wrong is something that has been really beneficial, especially within the e-learning space. And just they've been really, I think something that stood out to me about Relay is they've been really understanding and flexible given the current conditions of the pandemic. And they've been very accommodating while still making sure that they are preparing us for the classroom and maintaining a level of rigor that will provide us with the resources and the skill set that we need. So that's what I would say.
Kelvin, what about you, man? Both as a student, learning the art and science of teaching, but also as a teacher and the supports that they're providing for you.
Yeah, so I'm in the second year of the program, and I was fortunate enough to have the first year of the program before the pandemic happened. And the first year was very hands-on. I would even say like it was very uncomfortable at the same time. So like with, we do so many practices and there's so many skills that they want you to learn. And, at first it was a little intimidating, but you catch yourself catching small pieces that you use in the classroom. And it's those small pieces that really encourage you to, grasp the bigger picture along the way. So as long as you are grasping the smaller bits, they'll eventually, turn into the bigger pieces. And, with Relay, I was, fortunate enough to have professors and Dean Cooprider to, have they were very patient with me with, my comfortability and, just expressing how I can still have myself within the classroom, but, have these tools that will, help not only myself learn and grow, but also have the students grow as well. So, the resources, they are definitely there. And the biggest resources in Relay are the professors and the deans, because, the conversations that we've had have been like, they're just immeasurable, to be honest. And I'm grateful for them. And, I didn't even talk about the second part. So year 2 of the program is a lot more hands off. And you are supposed to like take over the classroom, become a lead teacher. But, that's the goal. But at the same time, if you're not comfortable with that happening, you are still able to find your place within the classroom. And I'm a co-teacher right now, and that's where my comfortability is at. And they're still encouraging me to push those boundaries and take over the classroom more and more each day. So I just it's a pretty cool experience, and I'm glad that Relay is very understanding about the people that they have within their own classrooms.
Love it. So there's a question I just had up here, and I'm going to put it up here again. And just so the folks that are listening, watching this, Dean Cooper is in the backstage. So you may see an appearance from her throughout the show. We're not sure. But here's a great question. And I don't know if you guys can answer it. But Alex asked a really good question. It said, pre-pandemic, was there a parent/community engagement component to the residency? If so, did that engagement help when transitioning to teaching online? So Kelvin, you can kind of speak to this because you mentioned you started the year last year in the building, pre-pandemic when we thought things were normal, and then you were a part of the transition when we went to remote learning. So was there a component on parent and community engagement in the residency program? And if so, what was that like, and how's that you think benefit since we transitioned?
So if I recall correctly, and it was such a I wouldn't say it was a small piece, but it was touched on throughout the semester. If I recall correctly, we had small pieces where we would engage with, there was slides and stuff that I'm just trying to think off the go right now. So
no, you're fine.
Okay. So if I remember correctly, we've had pieces that talked about parent-teacher engagement, and we didn't have specific things that we can use within the classroom, phone conversations, how to talk to parents and stuff like that. But we did have it is important to keep in contact with parents, because parents are going to tell you things about the student that will help them and yourself just become better in the classroom. Tips that will help you. Oh, what did Ms. Cooper say?
She said it right there. So she said, getting to know students, families, and schools is a key part of the 2-year coursework scope and sequence. So those that know, first of all, the parent community engagement piece, right? It's something that is an ongoing practice that you continue to learn year in and year out. But I think what the pandemic has highlighted for everyone is that when we made the switch to online learning, you could quickly tell what teachers and what school were engaging with kids and families before this, right? Because it was those kids and those families who were getting online, who knew what things were happening. And so I think to what Alex is really asking is, is that a part of the residency program, right? And so, and Dean Cooper has said it. It's something that spiraled in throughout, and it's throughout the course sequence and the scope and sequence. But I'll say this, and I know I got some friends who work at KIPP, and they can attest to this because they've been in this. While it also is something that a residency program or any teacher preparation program should teach you, it is the job and the obligation of the school to empower and create that space for teachers in order to have better communication with families. And so a lot of that falls on the school as well. And I know KIPP does an amazing job with communicating with families, because like I said, I got some really close friends and some educators that I know personally that work there, and I know where their heart is. And so, but Alex, great question. So we keep touching on it. And so I got to ask, because both of you are living it, how has Relay helped you teach online? Because again, this was new for everybody. So I'm sure outside of it being a virtual school, no one's really mastered this yet, but how has Relay helped you, with best practices, with teaching online? How's that been helping you as you teach your students online?
So I'd say for me, outside of just the different resources that they've provided for us, as they come out, obviously no one's really taught in a pandemic before. This is something that's pretty new to everyone. So as resources are becoming available, just different methods that different teachers and educators have shared. Relay has done a great job of funneling those down to us and make sure that we have different access to different resources. And something that I know I enjoy is last semester when I would have my meetings with Dr. Cooprider, I would present her with just something that I might be having some trouble with virtually, whether it be engagement or getting my students to participate. And she would be able to like problem solve and things like that. So thinking of different ways to accommodate for students virtually in a way that is equitable and feasible is something that she's and the professors have really helped us with. And something else that's been really helpful during this time is our deliberate practice time. So it's like a class that we have that we literally just kind of come together and we practice. We go through lesson plans and creating them and practice actually giving instruction and giving lessons, and we receive feedback on that. So that's been something that's been really helpful during this time, just having those practice moments to really reflect and kind of tweak different things outside of the classroom setting, the virtual classroom setting.
Love it. Kevin, what about you? How has Relay helped you in this online teaching environment that we're all now living through?
So I was going to say that I'm a little bit jealous because the year ones, they get that opportunity to lesson plan and practice with each other. But year two, we don't do the practicing anymore. So all of my resources are coming from the professors that are teaching online, and they do different things within our own classrooms that, you know, they might not think that we're like tuning in on, but in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, I think I could use that within the classroom. But even the more deliberate stuff where they have like active engaging parts of the lesson and different things that they can like have students participate. And yeah, that's about it. That's been my focus for like the past couple months, is like just getting the students to actively engage and, you know, whatever tools that Relay has been sharing, my professors, they've been sharing within our class, you know, I pick up on that and I try and explore within my own lesson plans to, you know, accommodate my students as well.
Good. Love. And we keep hearing you say the word practice, right? And so those that know, practice is a big part of Relay. Trust me, I know, going through the principal fellowship, just the importance of practice. And Doug Lamothe has a book out, Practice Perfect. And he talks about in the book, right, how we're fond of saying practice makes perfect. But what Relay is teaching is practice makes permanent, right? So the more deliberate practice you have, it stamps, it makes the skill more permanent. And so this idea of practice is key for teachers. We do a lot of practice clinics here. And that is one of the best levers that you can pull as a teacher, that yes, lesson plan markup is good, and yes, unit unpacking is good, and yes, engagement is good. But what do you do with all those skills? Are you practicing those skills before you step in front of students? Because yes, practice can make perfect, but we want practice to make permanent. So I do want to stamp that importance of deliberate practice, because we keep hearing that. So if you're just tuning in, this is the Recess Podcast. Like I said, in the beginning, I got two amazing educators with me. We're talking about teacher residency programs. They're representing KIPP Indy. They're representing Relay Graduate School. They're resident teachers. They're the future of this profession. Excited to have them on. So we talked a lot about the residency program and trying to define that. We've allowed you, if you've been tuning in with us since the beginning, we talked about what it's like at Relay. So now, the title of the show is the Recess Podcast. You know, we have real conversations. And so you guys are educators. So you're part of this fight. So now I'm about to get to who you are as people and who you are as educators. So these questions are more about, the current state and what we're in. So let me ask you guys, in your opinion, what needs to happen to improve education for children? And I'm going to speak because it's a passion of mine, and folks that listen to my show know that I'm all about students of color, but particularly Black children. So what is it going to take to improve the educational outcomes for Black children, in your opinion? And now we're going to get to the real. So now I want you guys to tell me, what's it going to take to improve? So Kelvin, I'm going to start with you, buddy, because I think I see the shirt If I'm mistaken, it says Black Lives Matter. Yeah, okay. So I thought that's what it says. So, in your opinion and what you've seen, what is it going to take to improve education for Black children?
In all honesty, I think we just need to have more teachers that are passionate about the work, and not only have the teachers that are passionate about the work, but the administrators to back them up. So, whenever we have issues within the classroom or we need to improve upon something, everybody is on the same page. And, when we all become on the same page, the sky's the limit. We could talk about like resources and, the data and all that stuff as well. But I really believe that if we work together and work as a team, we will, see the growth within our students. So, I just want to keep it simple. Everybody be passionate and, just back the students the best that we can.
I love it. So you Howard grad, I was at an HBCU where the love of teaching and education was fostered into me, and where I had a professor tell me that it's my obligation, right, to walk into the classroom as a Black male and not only change the perception of how kids see, Black teachers, but also I have an obligation to protect our Black children from a system that isn't designed for them. So I know the type of things that are talked about on campus of HBCUs, but from your opinion, from what your upbringing and your time in the classroom, what is it going to take to improve the outcomes for Black children in education?
So honestly, I really think along with what Kelvin mentioned, just starting with getting more educators who are passionate in the classrooms. I think students need teachers and educators who look like them in all aspects. And then I also think that there needs to be some sort of systemic change on a larger level. I think that when considering the types of school communities that are under-resourced, underfunded, and underserved, they are typically in Black and brown neighborhoods and communities. And I don't think that that's by accident, by coincidence. There are things that are systemically in place that are meant to hold Black and brown students back. And I think that until we as a people are honest about addressing that and addressing that on a larger scale in terms of things outside of education. So in terms of affordable housing, access to quality food, access to livable wages, until all of those things are also addressed, I feel like those are the things that are necessary to improving education for Black and brown children specifically.
Absolutely. And I'm going to take a moment here real quick because I know many in Indianapolis. Chalkbeat released an article today. It says, left out of referendums, Indiana charter schools see openings for more funding. So there's a lot of money being sent out and doled out to educators or to schools, and charter schools seem to be left out on that. And so we talked about like this idea of equity funding schools, particularly charter schools that primarily serve students of color. And so I'm encouraging those who believe in the right for all students to receive a quality education, that you make sure that all schools, charter schools, public school, private schools, township schools or district schools, that they receive the funds, but especially charter schools, because charter schools, just like our traditional district schools here in Indiana, are public schools, and we should get some of that public dollar. So that's my soapbox and public service announcement for a minute. Folks know that watch my show, I can go on and on about this, but this ain't about me. This is about getting to hear from you all. So I heard that from you. So if you think about it, what impact do you want to have as a teacher? Like when you think about your impact as an educator, as a teacher, what type of impact do you want to leave on the profession, on the city, on your particular school, when all is said and done on your teaching career? What's the impact you want to leave?
I would say for me, so I think as a teacher, my focus is primarily to serve Black and brown students. So when I think about the impact that I hope to leave on them, it really is just that they as people can show up and succeed exactly as they are. I think in academia, Black and brown students a lot of times are taught to be compliant. They're taught to be that they need to act or exhibit a certain behavior or attitude in order to succeed or achieve success. And I don't think that's true. And I think that many of our students need to know and recognize that that's true, because I think a lot of times students see the things around them, and if they feel that they don't fit into a mold that yields success, they aren't going to strive for it. And I think that it's important for me that students in my classroom recognize that where they are at, they can achieve success, whatever that may look like for them, and that they don't need to withhold or water down any part of their personality to achieve that. So that's what I would say.
Love it. Kevin, what about you? What's the impact that you want to have on education, or, you know, on the profession?
Yeah, so I'm going to agree a little bit with that. I really want my students to feel like that they can be comfortable within their own skin, and you know, that they can do the things that we typically like stray away from. So we always talk about like our students are going to be basketball players, football players. You know, we always get into the sports, but you know, there's more to life than the sports that we play. And, you know, I really want my students to be able to just be aware of that. Like there's so many opportunities out there, and, you know, the success is what you think of it, is not what people think of you or think of you. So, you know, just having that self-worth and having my students believe in themselves, and, you know, just having them do whatever they want to do in life, as long as it's a positive contribution to society.
I love it. So do you see yourself as career teachers? Meaning, do you want to stay in the classroom? Do you have ambitions maybe to move up in leadership? Do you have ambitions to step on the side of coaching, or step outside of K-12, out of the education section, or working in more of a nonprofit? Like 5 years from now, right? Where do you hope to see yourself? Whether in education, I hope still in schools, but where do you guys see yourself in 5 years? If you had a crystal ball and could say 5 years, I want to be doing this, what would that be? Or have you not thought about it? Maybe you haven't, but if you have, you know, what is that you see yourself in 5 years?
So in 5 years, I could see myself in education for another 5 years, or up until 5 years. I would really love to teach a program about like photography and videography, since that was my passion for all of my time in college. And right now I'm teaching phonics and writing, which I really enjoy doing for my kindergartners. But I would also, you know, like to tie back to the things that I went to school for, and, you know, teach students that, you know, you could pick up a camera and, you know, create different worlds, and, you know, use that to extend your imagination and get your word out, get your voice out there. So if I can, you know, figure out a way to teach photography, videography, anything like that, you know, I would definitely stay in the education system. If I can't do that, then I would also like to work behind the scenes a little bit to help parents that might be in need. I'm not really sure where that, what title that might be just yet, but you know, we also got to focus on the parents that, because, you know, the students go home to them, and they pick up a lot more from their parents than they do in the classroom. So I would also like to, you know, help them as well. So if I could do anything like that, you know, you'll be seeing me in the education field for another 5 years.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of at an age where it changes every week or so. But so I'm not entirely sure, but I do want to continue to be in the educational sphere in some capacity. I think I'm interested in getting more into just special education and the needs that our sped students need. But also, like Kelvin, I think I do also want to tie it back into my undergrad degree and my first passion, which was law. So I do see myself also going back to law school and doing that so that I could possibly pursue a career in education law and just creating policy and that type stuff. So that's what I would say.
So my good friend of mine, Ashley, said, yes, special education needs you. She's a special education teacher, and we always talk about the need of more special education teachers, particularly more special education teachers of color, because we all see the statistics that students of color, particularly Black kids, particularly Black boys, are pushed more and more to special education. And so, and you talked about it when you said it earlier, the importance of representation, right? Making sure that our teaching force and our schools represent the students that they serve. And so that's important about that clientele. But you're right. Listen, I remember when I was at 22, I said I was going to be a career teacher. There was nothing that was going to take me out of the classroom. Obviously that changed, but you're right. It constantly changes because you learn about different things. 2 years from now, y'all might hear about a new nonprofit, right? That's centered around education. Kelvin, you talked about supporting families. There's tons of nonprofits out there, organizations that are out there to support parents in schools. I've talked about a lot on Twitter, this important of parent agency and parent engagement and how important it is for us to equip parents with the necessary tools. But I'll say this to both of you. That piece about supporting parents, you have that power as a teacher, right? If you can foster that engagement for parents, because one thing parents do have, they have love for their children. It's the school's job to now get them to have love for their child's school, right? So they're invested in their kids' education. They might not be invested too much of where the education is coming from, but don't get it twisted. Like, these parents are invested in their child. It's the school's job to make sure they get invested into that place. But that piece about law, I did an awesome fellowship called Teach Plus, and I learned a lot about educational policy and just how much of a voice that teachers have when it comes to educational policy, that legislators do want to hear from teachers. They do want to hear teacher voices. Now, you have to be effective in the way you communicate and articulate it, but they want to hear from teachers. And we do have a strong voice. I mean, you've seen what happens when you galvanize teachers. We can sway a pendulum many different ways if we come together. And so that law piece and understanding the background of education law is key. And it's something as a teacher early on that I'd encourage each of you to tap into. Read about legislation, read about policies, just so you can stay informed, so you can stay informed in those conversations, because it will make your practice better. And it'll make you better when you walk into your school, that you know what's going on, right? That you are informed about the broader sense of what's happening in our community. Because it sounds like you got in this to make a difference, and you definitely can make a difference if you know what's happening. So I always ask those questions just because I'm curious about why people got into the profession, where people see themselves in 5 years. Yes, it is that typical interview question, but it also tells you a lot about somebody, right? The way that they think about their goals and things like that. So I'm going to circle back to the residency piece. So when you think about the current landscape in education, right? How do you feel a residency program better prepares teachers to step into the classroom by themselves day one? So when you think about the moment you have your own classroom with your name on the door and there's no more mentor teacher with you, how have you seen this residency program prepare you for that day?
Yeah, so honestly, if we didn't have this residency piece, I probably wouldn't even make it, to be honest. I actually have a couple friends that are in the classroom right now, and they didn't have like any practice, and they just went in and they're learning as they go. But with Relay and having them allow somebody to coach me and to allow me to make those mistakes and help me along the way, I feel like I am better equipped than some of my friends that are stepping into the classroom and don't have any, support from anybody other than, their coworkers. So, yeah, I feel like we, with time and with the resources that Relay has shared, each day I just become stronger and a lot more confident. If you could see me like day one of being in the classroom, it's completely different than how I'm teaching now. I have a lot more confidence, and I feel like, even though I'm not in the classroom by myself all the time, I definitely can be in the classroom by myself. And, with Relay and Kip, because Kip has helped me with that as well. I just feel, a lot more confident and thankful for those that took the time out to mentor me with Relay and Kip.
Love it. It's awesome to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all kind of ties back into that piece about deliberate practice. I think Relay really believes that strong teachers are built through that practice, and they do a really good job of prepping us and giving us resources to do that practice at a very high level. Like Kelvin mentioned, having a mentor, so having an advisor. I know that for me personally, that's been so beyond helpful, especially because I have been able to work with my advisor super closely, especially when in person. I'm able to co-teach with her every day and get in the moment feedback, and that's been really critical to sharpening my skills, and something that I know is going to be integral to my success as a independent lead teacher. And then also, I don't know how much we touch on this a year two, but I know year one we hit the gates running with an identity reflection. And I think when thinking about the type of students and communities that we serve, reflecting on our identity markers along with the identity and cultural markers of our students is something that is important, because it's not just about academics, it's about how we can relate to our students as people, because our students are people at the end of the day. And the best way to communicate with them is by understanding that and understanding the different ways they move through this world as people and how their identity and cultures affect that. So those are the two things that I would say have really prepared me most.
And Dean Cooper, I put up here, residency provides a gradual on-ramp to teaching through co-teaching, modeling, and in-the-moment feedback. Listen, I say this a lot, and those that are in the comments that are teachers, they'll tell you, there's nothing more fulfilling about that first day you walk into your classroom as a lead teacher, right? Whenever that moment is, whether it's 22, 24, 32, whatever, that first day that you walk into your own classroom with your name on the door, there's no greater feeling than that moment. There's also no sadder feeling than when you leave that day and you realize how hard this really is. And so when I think of the residency model and I hear about it and I reflect on my semester of co-teaching or student teaching, those are two drastically different things. I think a lot of people get them confused with, residency teacher sounds like student teaching. And it's like, no, a resident teacher and a student teacher are two different things. As a student teacher, I wasn't an employee of the school. I was more like a volunteer. And yeah, I got to teach a little bit. And yes, there was on-ramping, but a resident teacher, and I'm going to put it back up there, as Dean Cooper alluded to, it's a gradual on-ramp through co-teaching, or you kind of observe a little bit, you kind of sit and observe, then you get the co-teach, then there's a modeling piece, and you mentioned in your program you get the practice, and you get in the moment feedback. But as a student teacher, you sit, and then eventually they give you a lesson to teach, right? And then you move to the next school. But with that resident teacher, you guys are KIPP Indy employees. And so not only are you getting the experience teaching, but you're learning the school culture of KIPP. You're learning the KIPP way. You're building those relationships with students and families and their other colleagues. And that's a deeper feeling. And Kelvin, you alluded to that's how you keep folks when it is hard, when they are struggling, because they have that sense of connection. I've seen many student teachers leave the profession because it is hard and there's no connection to that particular school. And so I do see a space where you're going to see a lot more folks going into the residency model, and you get paid. And I ain't get paid nothing for being a student teacher, and I still have the markup lesson plan. So again, I see this beneficial in that way, but I think the piece about being in the school is definitely powerful for me. So I got one more question for you guys before we get to our final thoughts. So what advice do you have for those that are considering teaching as a profession, and why should they look into a program like Relay and the residency model? So if you were going to speak to, at a university or some individuals that say, I'm thinking about a career in teaching, what advice would you give for them, and why should they consider Relay and the residency model?
So the advice I would have would be the advice that someone gave me when I was considering different programs, and it would be to know your why and really sit and think and process what your why is and why you've chosen it. Because teaching is really a job of wins and then struggles. There are days where that are really successful, and then there are days that are just really hard, and it can be easy to give into the desire to give in or throw in the towel. But being rooted and grounded in your why, especially for those days where they are more of a struggle, I think ultimately allows you to push on and keep going. And unless you are rooted in what drives you in this career, because it's not an easy one, and without being grounded in that, I think that it can be easy to fall out of it. So that's what I would say in terms of that. And in terms of Relay, just the year one is honestly my biggest selling point. And I know that it was something that was really critical to me. And having the ability to learn and sharpen my skills but before becoming a lead teacher is just something that I think is critical for any teacher and anyone who wants to get into being an educator. So that's what I would say in terms of why they should choose Relay.
Love it.
Yeah, to add on to that, I would say that it's the mentorship part that really brought it home with me. Because if I didn't have anybody in the classroom with me, I honestly don't know what the kids will be learning, to be honest. And having somebody that I can shadow, talk to, be honest with, and just eventually even like become my friend, and just be real with me about what I'm doing in the classroom. That was the piece that is making me stick around this entire time. So having somebody with me, helping me out, I might have some days where I'm just like completely like out of it. I have no idea what I'm doing, but somebody's there to get those tools or put those tools inside of me, like, hey, try this, and see how things go. And sometimes it might work, sometimes it does, but at least you have somebody there that can improve your skills. And I would say, as long as you have a willingness to learn and to humble yourself and allow somebody to become that mentor and become that leader who wants to grow another leader, then you will do all right. There are bad days. There are some like very rewarding days, I'll tell you that. But you have somebody there with you, and you're not by yourself.
I love it. I love it. So we're almost at our hour, and so I always close the show with a thing called final thoughts. And so I'll yield this space. I'll put you guys on the solo screen again. Just take 1 or 2 minutes and kind of give your final thoughts. You can wrap it up with kind of the conversation we talked about, or you could just give a final thought on whatever you want. And so this is your space. And so Kelvin, I'll start with you, man. Final thoughts. What's your final thoughts for this evening for the folks listening?
So my final thoughts are I'm very fortunate to be on this podcast and have these conversations. I think we definitely need to have more of these conversations within the classroom, within our homes, and we just have to honestly be real real with ourselves. And, thanks for having me. And then another final thought is, if you're having a hard time in the education field because of the pandemic or whatever you got going on, just hold on and, find somebody that you can relate to either at home or not at home, but at school, and, have a conversation with them. You'd be surprised about how far a conversation could go, because, there's people out there that are feeling the same things that you are. So, find that person that you can talk to and just keep going, because our kids need it.
Absolutely. They most certainly do. Final thoughts.
I'm definitely also super grateful for being able to be in this space and engage with you guys on just different topics surrounding education. I think, like Kelvin said, these conversations are important, and it's important that we not only keep having them, but thinking of different ways that we can take the conversations that we have and put them into action, and that can help improve our educational sphere. Final thoughts that I have are support and listen to teachers. They're on the front lines, so just always give them your support, listen to what they have to say, and yeah.
I love it. I love it. My final thoughts are simple. So you educate a child, you educate an individual, but you educate a child to teach, and you can educate the future. So I encourage those, if you have people in your family, young people, encourage them to get an education. I encourage teachers out there, encourage your students to consider a career in education, because we have to be the advocates for our profession. I want to thank both of you for coming on. I'm really excited again about the future of our city and the landscape of education, having two amazing educators like yourself. Shout out to Relay Indy, Erica McGady, Carlotta Cooprider for helping me connect with this. Shout out to Kip Indy for lending you as well. And shout out to everybody that was listening. This has been the Recess Podcast. I'm David McGuire. Catch me next week, Tuesday, for episode 29. It's called Filling Your Bucket, How Leaders of Color Can Invest in Their Own Development. I'm gonna have an awesome panel, and we're gonna talk about how leaders of color should invest in their own development. As I always say at the end of every show, create the platform, control the conversation, and change the culture. This has been a Recess Podcast, and I'll see y'all next week. Peace, everybody.